I don't usually do this, talk about my private life online, but something happened last summer that I still haven't fully wrapped my head around. I think if I don't say it out loud, even just once, it'll eat at me. So here goes. It all started because my car broke down. Not exactly a sexy or romantic beginning, I know, but that stupid breakdown stranded me in the one place I hadn't been in years, my hometown. I hadn't planned on coming back, not even for a weekend. Not since high school. Not since I left everything, and everyone, behind. I had called 3 tow trucks, none of which came. Eventually, I gave up and walked the half-mile stretch to the only person I could think of who might still talk to me. Ben. Ben and I were best friends once. Like, inseparable since 5th grade. He was the first person I told I liked boys. Back then, I hadn't even said it out loud to myself, not really. I just told him I thought our soccer coach was hot, and he'd stared at me like I just started speaking French. And then he didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. When he finally did, all he said was, "So, do you still think Coach Adams is hot?" I nodded. He laughed. We never talked about it again. Ben was straight. Or so I thought. He had girlfriends throughout high school, always the popular ones. I was just the best friend. The funny one. We'd spend whole weekends gaming, building skateboard ramps, sneaking beers from his dad's garage fridge. There were nights we'd fall asleep in the same bed because we were too lazy to move. Sometimes he'd rest his arm on me or nudge my leg under the blanket. I used to think that was just him being him. Until senior year, when everything got complicated. He kissed me once, when we were both drunk at a party. Just a peck, barely anything. But it happened. I looked at him, shocked, and he just laughed like it was a joke. I laughed too, and that was the last time we ever hung out one-on-one. So yeah, showing up at his door out of the blue, covered in sweat and still mad at my car, wasn't exactly something I thought through. But when he opened the door and saw me, I swear, it was like nothing had changed. He blinked once, maybe twice, and then grinned. "Derek?" "Hey," I said, awkward as hell. He didn't say anything else, just pulled me into a hug. His arms were stronger than I remembered, his grip tighter, like he wasn't letting go anytime soon. "Still allergic to calling first?" he teased when he finally stepped back. "I didn't think you'd answer," I said honestly. "Yeah, well, you'd be right. Come in." That was how it started again, with an open door and a hug I hadn't realized I needed. His place was a small rental house, just off the same street we used to skateboard down as kids. The same scratch on the mailbox from when he wiped out trying to impress Jenna something or other. The inside was clean, but clearly lived in, dishes in the sink, mail piled on the table, and a single throw blanket balled up on the couch. It smelled faintly of Old Spice and laundry detergent. We sat on the couch, me still sticky from the heat, him lounging like he'd been waiting for me to show up all along. He asked what I'd been up to, how long I was in town, if I still lived in Chicago. I answered, mostly. But part of me was still stuck on the way he kept looking at me. Not like before, not exactly, but there was something there, a lingering glance, the kind of pause that felt loaded with things left unsaid. I told him about the car and how I had nowhere else to crash. "You can stay here," he said instantly, like he hadn't even considered saying no. "You sure?" I asked. "I mean, I don't wanna—" "Derek," he cut in. "It's been 6 years. If I didn't want you here, I wouldn't have opened the door." I nodded, heart suddenly heavier than it should have been. "Okay, thanks." That night, we talked until almost 2 a.m., lying on opposite ends of the couch with beers in hand, trading stories like we hadn't missed a day. At one point, he leaned back, arms stretched behind his head, and asked, "Did you ever think about what would have happened if things were different?" I looked at him. He wasn't smiling, wasn't joking. "Yeah," I said, "all the time." The next morning felt weird. Not in a bad way, just in that way where your brain hasn't caught up with your heart yet. I woke up on Ben's couch with a crick in my neck and a blanket I don't remember pulling over myself. But what I noticed first was the smell, coffee brewing, and then his voice, humming something soft and low from the kitchen. It was stupid how domestic it felt. Like this was some alternate reality where Ben and I had never lost touch and had just woken up in a house we shared. "Coffee?" he called when he noticed I was awake. God, yes, I groaned, sitting up and rubbing my eyes. He poured a second mug and brought it over, handing it to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. His fingers brushed mine, maybe on purpose, maybe not, and he sat down across from me on the armchair. So, what's the plan, he asked, sipping his own coffee. I'm gonna call the shop again, see if my car is actually getting looked at today, I said, then hesitated. And I guess, see if I can find a cheap motel if I'm stuck another night. Ben frowned, like that was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard. You're staying here, he said, like it wasn't up for debate. I've got the space. And besides, it's not like we got to talk last night. We talked a lot, not about anything real. I paused, unsure how to take that. What do you mean? Ben leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I never asked you why you left. Like, really left. Just vanished. I looked down at the rim of my mug, suddenly uncomfortable. I thought you didn't care. Derek, he said. And my name sounded like something heavier in his mouth. You were my best friend. Of course I cared. I swallowed. You kissed me, I said quietly. And then you ghosted me for 2 months. After that, it was like I didn't exist anymore. His eyes dropped. Yeah, he murmured. I remember. Felt like you made your choice pretty clear, I added. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I didn't know how to deal with it. I scoffed. Not mean, just tired. Yeah, neither did I. But I never meant to push you away, he said quickly. That night, I was drunk, yeah, but it wasn't nothing. I just panicked. I didn't know if it meant anything to you. It meant everything to me. Ben looked at me then, really looked, and something in his expression shifted. He set his mug down slowly, like he was buying time. I thought about you, he said. A lot. After you left. After high school. Even now. I blinked. You never reached out. I didn't think I had the right to, he said. But when I saw you at the door yesterday, I knew I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say anything. The silence between us wasn't awkward, though. It was thick, like something real was finally settling in the air, like neither of us wanted to fill it with small talk anymore. He stood up. I gotta head to work for a few hours, but the place is yours. Make yourself at home. Ben, I started, not even sure what I was going to say. He turned back. We're not done talking, he said. Right? I shook my head. Not even close. When the door shut behind him, I stared at it for a full minute, still holding my half-empty mug. We weren't done. That much was certain, but I had no idea what was coming next. The house felt too quiet after Ben left. It was the same space, the same couch, the same dusty sunlight drifting through the blinds, but without him there, it felt off, like a movie set after the actors leave. I wandered into the kitchen, poured another cup of coffee, and sat back down, staring at the mug like it had answers. Why did hearing him say he thought about me hit so hard? It wasn't like I hadn't imagined those words before. Hell, I'd replayed our last night together 100 times in my head. What if he'd kissed me again? What if I hadn't laughed? What if I had stayed? But now, the what-ifs were becoming something more like, maybe. I cleaned up after myself, made the bed, even though it was the couch, and eventually called the shop. My car was still in queue, which meant another full day stuck here. I almost felt relieved. Around noon, I stepped outside for some air. The street hadn't changed much. Same cracked sidewalk, same basketball hoop, still hanging crooked from the garage across the street. The kid who used to live there probably had a kid of his own by now. I walked down the block, phone in my pocket, just letting the quiet hum of suburbia settle into me. It was strange being here again. like slipping into old shoes that almost fit, but not quite. I passed by the park where Ben and I used to hang out after school. The old picnic table was still there, our initials carved into the corner from freshman year. DB plus BW. We used to joke it looked like a couple's carving. I remember once, he scratched it out, then rewrote it. Didn't say why. I never asked. Around 3 p.m., Ben texted, "Be home around 5. Want to do something tonight?" I stared at it for a second before typing back, "Sure. Dinner? Movie? Fight Club?" He replied instantly, "Yes, to all." When he got home, he looked different. Not physically. He was still the same Ben, a little more filled out since high school, scruffier around the jaw. But there was something else, like a wall had come down. "I got beer," he said, holding up a six-pack as he stepped inside. "And you intend to share it?" I asked, following him into the kitchen. "Depends," he said with a grin. "You still drink that IPA garbage?" "I'll drink anything that's not warm." We ordered pizza, cracked open a couple of beers, and ended up watching something stupid and loud on Netflix. I don't even remember what it was. The real show was Ben. His laugh, his commentary, the way he sprawled out on the couch like it was still our parents' basement and we were 17 again. Halfway through the movie, he shifted closer. Not a lot, just enough that our knees touched. I didn't move, neither did he. It stayed like that through the rest of the film. The quiet hum of the TV, the soft clink of bottles on the coffee table, and the low-level buzz of tension that neither of us wanted to name just yet. When the credits rolled, Ben leaned back, stretching his arms behind his head. "Man, I needed this." I looked over at him, and before I could stop myself, said, "Did you ever miss me?" He didn't answer right away. Just sat there, staring at the dark TV screen. "Yeah," he said finally. More than I let myself admit. I nodded, heart pounding in my chest. I didn't expect it to feel like this. Raw and strange and just on the edge of something we couldn't take back. "Do you regret that night?" I asked. He turned to face me then, really face me. "Only that I didn't do more." The silence stretched between us like a held breath. And then he added, voice low, "I didn't know if you'd want me to." I did. And just like that, everything shifted. That moment hung in the air like a lit fuse. He said he should have done more. I said I wanted him to. We just sat there, both of us finally admitting what had been sitting between us for years, and neither of us quite sure what to do now that it was out. Ben looked down for a second, like he was thinking something through. His jaw flexed a little, that old tell when he was nervous or holding something back. "You really wanted me to?" he asked, quieter this time. Like he needed to hear it again, just to believe it. I nodded. "Yeah, I wasn't joking back then. That kiss, it wasn't nothing to me." He stared at me for a moment longer, and then his gaze dropped to my mouth. I felt it before it happened, this subtle shift in the air between us, like a magnet pulling us closer. My pulse jumped. I wanted to lean in, to close the gap that felt microscopic now, but I didn't. I didn't want to push it or make him second-guess it again, so I waited. And then, he moved first. It wasn't fast or dramatic or any of the ways you expect these moments to be. He just leaned in slowly, deliberately, giving me time to pull away. But I didn't. I stayed right there, letting it happen, my breath catching when his lips brushed against mine, soft, hesitant, careful, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to want this. I kissed him back, just enough to say, "Yes, this is okay, keep going," and he did. The second kiss was firmer, more sure. One of his hands found the side of my face, thumb grazing my jaw, and I swear I stopped thinking altogether. My world narrowed down to the way his mouth fit against mine, the way his body turned toward me on the couch, knees bumping together. Everything quiet except for the sound of our breathing. Eventually, we pulled apart, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. Air, reality, All that. He looked at me, dazed and a little stunned, like he couldn't believe what just happened. "Okay," he said, half laughing. "That was a long time coming." I exhaled, my heart still hammering. "Yeah. You okay?" Ben nodded slowly. "I think I've been waiting for that for years. Just didn't realize it." We sat there in the soft, flickering light of the TV, neither of us speaking for a few seconds. I could feel his knee still resting against mine, his hand still close enough to reach for me again. And honestly, I didn't want him to stop, but he leaned back, ran a hand through his hair, and said, "I don't know what this means, but I don't want it to be just a one-time thing. Not again." "Me either," I said. "Whatever this is, I want to find out." He smiled then. Not a smirk, not a joke, just this quiet, genuine smile, like he finally let himself breathe. "You should stay another night," he said. "Thought I already was." "No," he said, eyes meeting mine. "I mean, in my room." The way he said it wasn't rushed or loaded with anything more than what was already there. Just an invitation. A next step. The start of something new. I nodded. Okay. Walking into Ben's room that night felt surreal. Not because it was unfamiliar, it wasn't, but because of how familiar it still was. The posters on the wall had changed, the bed was bigger, and there was a guitar in the corner that I didn't remember him ever playing. But it still smelled like him. Some mix of laundry soap and that same cologne he used to steal from his dad back in high school. He stood by the bed, watching me like he wasn't sure how this was supposed to go. I wasn't either, honestly. "This okay?" he asked, voice soft. "Yeah," I said, kicking off my shoes. "Just weird being here again?" He nodded. "Yeah, but the good kind of weird, right?" "Yeah, the kind you don't want to mess up." We didn't dive into anything. No fireworks. No dramatic undressing. Just us. Quiet, hesitant, a little nervous. We climbed into the bed, fully clothed, lying on opposite sides, like we didn't know if we were allowed to be anything but what we used to be. But it wasn't the same. We weren't kids anymore. And it wasn't just a sleepover. After a few minutes of silence, I felt the mattress shift. He moved closer, inch by inch, until I felt his body settle behind mine, not quite touching. "You okay?" he asked, his breath warm against my neck. "Yeah," I said. "You?" He didn't answer right away. Then I felt his hand, hesitantly resting on my side. Just that. No pressure, no pull, just contact. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted. "Neither do I." He exhaled, like that was what he needed to hear. I used to think about this, what it would be like. You and me. I turned slightly, enough to look back at him. "When?" He smiled, a little embarrassed. "Probably since that night in senior year. I just buried it. Dated girls. Focused on work. I didn't want to question anything." "What changed?" "You showing up at my door," he said. It was like the version of my life I could have had just walked back in. I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't need to. Instead, I turned back and let my hand find his on my side. Fingers lacing together slowly. We lay like that for a long time, saying nothing, just letting the silence speak for us. Eventually, I felt his lips press gently against the back of my neck. Not rushed, not heated, just there, real. I turned over to face him. We kissed again. This time, slower, deeper. The kind of kiss that doesn't ask for anything, but presence. His hand slid up under my shirt, not in a grabby way, just resting against the bare skin of my waist. My own hand found his hip, steady and sure, like we'd done this 1,000 times in another life. We didn't rush. We didn't try to make it into something we weren't ready for. We just touched, held. Fell asleep somewhere in the middle of the warmth and confusion and quiet that followed. When I woke up the next morning, the sun was streaming through the window, and Ben was still there, his arm across my chest, his face buried against my shoulder. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running from something. Waking up with Ben next to me felt like something out of a dream I used to have, but could never quite remember when I woke up. His arm was still draped over me, and his body was warm and relaxed, like he hadn't just spent the night tangled up in something as complicated as us. His breath was slow and even, and for a while I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to process it all. What even were we now? It wasn't just a kiss. It wasn't just a one-time thing. He'd made that clear, and I wasn't the same scared kid I'd been in high school, hoping for scraps of attention from someone who could never give it. Ben shifted beside me, slowly coming to. "Hey," he murmured, his voice scratchy with sleep. "Hey," I replied, glancing down at him. He looked up at me with half-lidded eyes, then grinned. "You're still here. You told me not to leave." "Good. I meant it." He sat up a little, propping himself on one elbow. His hair was a mess, sticking out in every direction, and his shirt was twisted up around his torso. He looked ridiculous. And kind of perfect. I reached out and smoothed a bit of hair out of his face. "You know we're gonna have to talk about this, right?" Ben groaned, collapsing back onto the pillow. "Can't we just make out forever and skip the talking?" I laughed. Tempting. But I'm not gonna be here forever, and you need to figure out if this is something real for you, or if it's just nostalgia. His eyes met mine again, and this time he didn't look away. "I've had years to think about this, Derek, and yeah, I buried it. I ignored it, but it never went away. It's not nostalgia, it's you." That hit me harder than I expected. "Okay," I said quietly. "Then let's figure it out." The next few days were a weird mix of perfect and surreal. We fell into this easy rhythm. Mornings with coffee, afternoons driving around our old town, or just lying in his backyard, evenings spent cooking dinner or watching terrible movies. But underneath it all was this constant hum of something bigger. One night, I caught him looking at me while we were doing dishes. He had this soft smile on his face, like he was seeing something for the first time. "What?" I asked. He shrugged. "I used to picture this, you and me, just doing life. And now that it's happening, it's kind of blowing my mind." I leaned back against the counter, wiping my hands on the towel. "So, what are we gonna do? Long distance? You coming to Chicago? Am I supposed to just stay here?" Ben looked thoughtful, then said, "I don't know yet, but I know I don't want this to end, and neither did I. So we made a plan. Not a perfect one, not one with all the answers, but enough. We'd try. He'd visit me. I'd come back more often. We'd talk, really talk, instead of burying what we felt. Because after everything, I realized something I hadn't dared to believe before. Ben wasn't just my past. He might actually be my future." 2 weeks after that night, I was back in Chicago. Same studio apartment. Same traffic, same clients, same overpriced cold brew down the street. And yet, everything felt different. Because now, I had Ben. We texted every day. Little things at first. A good morning here. A meme that reminded him of our high school days. Then, longer texts. Calls that started out casual and ended up stretching past midnight. The first time he FaceTimed me, he was sitting on his back porch, the golden hour light hitting his face in a way that made it impossible not to stare. He had that same crooked smile, that same nervous energy when he wasn't sure how much he should say out loud. "Still not sick of me?" I joked. "Not even close," he said. "I actually miss you more than I thought I would." I smiled, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, me too." And I did. More than I wanted to admit. We planned our first visit. He took a Friday off, booked a train, said he didn't trust his car to make the drive. When I picked him up at Union Station, he looked a little out of place in the crowd, shoulders tense, backpack slung over one side, hair windblown from the open windows. But when our eyes met, I knew. This wasn't just some romanticized reunion. This was something real. That weekend was honest. Not magical, not perfect, just real. He wasn't used to city noise, and he hated my shower pressure. I worked longer hours than he expected, and he didn't get why anyone would spend $7 on avocado toast. But we still fit, the way we always had. He made my bed feel warmer, my apartment less lonely. One morning, I found him in my kitchen, trying and failing to make coffee in my French press. His hair was a mess, he was shirtless, and he was muttering under his breath like the coffee was personally insulting him. I leaned in the doorway and just watched him for a second. "This what you pictured?" I asked. He turned, startled, then grinned. "What, you judging me already?" "No, I'm just thinking about how weirdly right this feels." His smile faded just a little. Not in a bad way. More like it hit him too. "Yeah, me too. But love, real love, isn't just about mornings like that. It's about what happens after, when the visit ends, when the apartment's quiet again, when your bed suddenly feels too big." After he left, we hit our first real bump. He got distant. Not completely, not in a cruel way, just slower to respond. Shorter texts, missed calls. At first I thought he was just busy, life, work, whatever. But after 3 days of near silence, I called him and didn't even let him say hello before I asked, "What's going on?" He sighed. "I don't know, I guess I'm scared." "Of what?" "That this is too good to last." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "You think I'm gonna ghost you or something?" "No," he said quickly. "No, I'm scared I'll mess it up, that I'll let you down, or that this is just a phase, some leftover high school confusion." That stung more than I expected. "You think this is a phase for me?" I asked, my voice low. "No," he said. "God, no, I think I'm scared it might be for me, or that people will think that." There it was. He hadn't said it, not outright, but I knew what he meant. He hadn't come out. Not to his family, not to most of his friends. I was the only one who knew. I exhaled slowly. "Ben, I'm not asking you to change who you are overnight, but I can't be your secret forever." "I know," he whispered. "I'm trying." "I know you are," I said, "and I'm here. I'm just telling you what I need too." It wasn't a fight, not really, but it was the first time I realized this wasn't going to be easy. That the story we were writing wasn't just about love. It was about timing and fear and years of things we hadn't dealt with until now. And still, after we hung up, after I sat there in the quiet, I knew I wasn't going anywhere. Because love isn't a restart button. It's a choice. And that night, I chose him again.